Don't wake him. He'll just start crying again. That's what she said. In our kitchen, at 1:23 a.m. to another man. I was lying on the floor. Right there. Right behind the couch in the living room, where the shadows fell just right and the light from the hallway didn't quite reach. I don't even know why I was on the floor. I think I dropped the photo album. Or maybe I collapsed under the weight of what I had just read on her laptop. Honestly, I don't remember anymore. The shame was louder than memory. She didn't know I was there. Neither did he. And when I heard his voice say, "He's still here? I thought you said he left." And she laughed. I knew something inside me broke. Clean in half. Quietly. Like a rotting beam inside a beautiful house. It wasn't an affair in the traditional sense. I wasn't catching her tangled in sheets. I didn't smell cologne on her blouse or see lipstick stains that weren't mine. No. This was a betrayal of a different flavor, slower, more deliberate, less about passion and more about cruelty. For the last 3 weeks, I'd been begging her to talk to me, to tell me why she'd grown so cold, why she'd started sleeping with her back turned, why she spent hours locked in the home office she used to hate. I brought her coffee every morning. I folded her laundry while she scrolled on her phone. I reminded her to take her vitamins, like some kind of desperate butler. And all this time, while I was breaking myself to prove I was still worthy of her attention, she was sending voice notes to him about how annoying my little breakdowns were, about how emotionally fragile I'd become, about how she felt like she was babysitting a rescue dog with abandonment issues. I read those messages. All of them. I wish I hadn't. But nothing hurt more than that one moment. That one night. On the floor. Behind the couch. Paralyzed by shame. He'll just start crying again. I didn't cry. I stood up. Quietly. Walked past the kitchen where she stood barefoot, leaning against the counter like she hadn't just gutted me. She looked at me, startled, eyes wide. Holden, I didn't speak. I didn't scream. I just smiled. Then I walked into our bedroom, opened the closet, took down the emergency duffel I packed years ago, just in case of wildfires, and walked out the door. She didn't follow. I don't think she believed I'd really go. She will. 3 days. That's how long it took her to realize I wasn't coming back. Not an hour, not a night, not a moody walk around the block. 3 full days of radio silence. No texts, no calls, no questions. I didn't block her. I just vanished. Let the silence be my signature. I didn't run away like a coward. I walked away like someone who finally understood the power of absence. I left her everything. The house, the keys, the furniture, the spare toothbrush I used to leave in the downstairs bathroom because she said the upstairs sink made my mouth noises echo too loud. I even left the framed photo of us from Aspen, the one she posted online and captioned, "My forever." I remember I smiled that day like the fool I was, holding her hand, not knowing she already had one foot out the door and her heart in someone else's inbox. But I didn't leave a note. I knew she'd go looking for one. She's always loved closure, probably so she could twist it into a victim narrative. But there was nothing for her to find. Just my side of the closet emptied out, the smell of my cologne still faint on the sheets, and a tiny sticker on her coffee mug that read, "Property of Holden." I left it there on purpose. A final, silent signature. I stayed in a rundown motel an hour out of town, peeling wallpaper, flickering lights, and vending machines that ate your money more than they gave snacks. It was perfect. It matched the inside of me. On the second night, I got my first message from her. Just a one-liner. "Where are you?" No emotion. No punctuation. Just an inconvenience disguised as concern. I didn't respond. The next one came 6 hours later. "Can we talk?" Then, "Please don't do this." Still, I said nothing. Because I realized something that night, something terrifying. She had never actually been afraid of losing me. She was only afraid of looking like she'd lost me. Her pride was louder than her guilt. I laid on the thin motel bed, scrolling through the photos I'd taken the night I left. Not of her, not of us, but of things I'd never noticed before. The crack in the hallway tile, the crooked family portrait above the stairs, the way her shoes were always pointed outward like she was ready to run. It hit me hard. I'd been memorizing a museum, not living in a home. And then, as if the universe wasn't done yet, I got an email. Not a message, not a text. An email. From a name I didn't recognize. Subject line: "You don't know me, but you need to see this." And what was inside that email? That was the beginning of something much, much darker. I stared at the email for a long time before I opened it. It felt like one of those cinematic moments where a character stands in front of a locked door, already knowing whatever's behind it is going to ruin them. Except this wasn't a movie. There was no soundtrack, no foreshadowing, just the harsh motel ceiling fan clicking above me and the dull glow of my laptop screen reflecting my own hollow expression. The sender's name was Liam G., someone I had never heard of. His email was short. No explanation. No backstory. Just a single Google Drive link with the words, "Thought you deserved to know who she really is." I clicked. Inside the folder were 5 video files. All screen recordings. No titles. No thumbnails. Just timestamps. The first video was a recording of a FaceTime call between my wife and a man whose face I didn't recognize, but whose voice I'd heard before, the same one from my kitchen that night. The video wasn't explicit in the physical sense, but it didn't need to be. Emotional infidelity has its own language. The way she tilted her head, the softness in her laugh, the way she said, "I can't wait to finally be free." She didn't say my name once, but she did refer to me as the anchor. Not as in something that keeps a ship safe, no, more like something heavy, rusted, and dragging her down. The second video hit harder. It was a screen recording of a group chat, a private one. My wife, 2 of her friends, and this same man, the one she now called G. In the chat, they joked about me, made memes. There was even a photo of me, taken without my knowledge, as I slept on the couch one night with a heating pad on my back. The caption read, "How's your emotional support husband holding up?" followed by a dozen laughing emojis. They called me names, compared me to an overfed shelter dog, said I probably cried after intimacy, said I looked like a substitute math teacher who lost the will to assign homework. And the worst part? She was the one leading the jokes, the one adding fuel. The woman I once thought was the most elegant, soulful person I had ever known was entertaining herself at my expense like I was some harmless joke at a sleepover. The third video was different. It was a voicemail. From me. To her. I'd left it a month earlier, after we'd had a minor argument about groceries of all things. In it, I apologized. My voice was trembling, weak, even. I told her I was sorry for raising my tone, sorry for forgetting her oat milk, sorry for being too intense. I begged her not to shut down. I said, "I just want to be good for you, Kat." And she had recorded herself listening to it, laughing, mocking my voice, repeating it in a high-pitched mimicry to the man she was cheating with. "I just want to be good for you," she said, mocking. He's like a broken toy trying to apologize for being boring. I couldn't breathe. I genuinely couldn't. My chest got tight. My hands went numb. I had to open the window of the motel room and sit on the floor. Not cry, not scream, just sit. For hours. I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt erased. Everything I had given, the loyalty, the patience, the humility, the effort, it wasn't just thrown away. It was recorded, packaged, and mocked like a comedy special. And I never even knew it. I lived inside a performance of a marriage where I thought I was the co-star, but really, I was just a prop. A background character in a story she told to make herself feel edgy and trapped and desired. I finally replied to Liam. I said, "Why did you send me this?" His response came less than a minute later. "Because she did the same thing to me. And you're not the first." That sentence right there, that was the moment everything changed. I wasn't just a husband who'd been betrayed. I was one of many. And something about that fact made this personal in a whole new way. After I closed the laptop that night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. There's a certain kind of alertness that takes over when your body knows it's been emotionally hunted. A sharpness in the brain. Like your nervous system finally catches up to what your heart ignored for too long. By sunrise, I had already gone through Liam's email 5 more times. Not just the videos, the metadata, the timestamps, the email headers. I needed to know how he had access to all this. And more importantly, how many others were out there like me. Because if what he said was true, that I wasn't the first, then maybe there was a pattern. And damn, there was. Liam sent another message the next morning. "You're going to want to see this folder. Don't freak out." Inside was a PDF titled Unsent Letters. There were 17 men, all written to Katrina, but never sent. Some short, just a few paragraphs. Others were pages long, different tones, different voices. But the same haunting thread ran through all of them. Confusion, heartbreak, obsession, guilt. Some of them still loved her. Others hated her. One of them, a man named Bryce, admitted he'd been in therapy for 3 years because of her. Another, Thomas, wrote about how he lost custody of his daughter because he spiraled into alcoholism after she emotionally gutted him and vanished. One letter ended with, "You were the best and worst thing that ever happened to me, and I don't even know if you remember my name." I sat on the bed, trembling, rereading line after line. These men weren't weak. They weren't stupid. They weren't all pushovers or safe choices. Some were ambitious, charismatic. One had been a criminal defense attorney. Another was a musician who toured Europe. Different walks of life, different personalities. But Katrina had touched each one like a virus touches the bloodstream. Subtle, silent, devastating. I wasn't special. I wasn't the only one. That should have comforted me. But it didn't. Instead, it made me realize how little I ever truly understood the woman I married. It made me wonder what version of me she described to them. What twisted little character she reduced me to in their private chats and stolen weekends. Did she say I was a coward? Did she tell them I begged? That I folded her laundry while she wrote love letters to other men? I searched her name online, curious now. A reverse image search of an old profile picture she used. Just for curiosity. And that's when it got darker. There were aliases, not just usernames. Full alternate names on obscure blogs, long-dead forums, even 2 self-published romance books under a pen name she never mentioned. One of the books had a character that sounded a lot like me, a quiet, dull husband who died in a car accident so the main character could finally be free to feel again. The worst part? The book came out 2 years into our marriage. That night, I poured myself a cup of coffee at 1:40 a.m. and sat in the motel bathroom with the lights off, staring into the mirror lit only by the streetlight outside. I had a choice. A dangerous one. I could go back, pretend, confront her, scream, demand closure, restitution, or even pity. Or I could become a ghost. Not the haunting kind, the observing kind. The one who watches everything unravel quietly, strategically. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted her to feel the cold echo of absence in a way she'd never felt before. She thought she was the narrator of the story. She had no idea I had just picked up the pen. It's strange how the world keeps spinning when your entire reality stops. You expect the sky to look different or the wind to sound harsher, but nothing changes. The traffic still hums. The coffee machine still drips. The motel receptionist still asks if you'd like a late checkout. Meanwhile, your life sits in pieces, unremarkable to everyone but you. That realization hit me hard. The world didn't care that my marriage had died, but maybe, just maybe, I could use that indifference to my advantage. After reading through every file Liam sent, I decided I needed to see her world again, not as her husband, but as a stranger. I started small. I logged into a joint streaming account we'd shared and checked the activity. She'd watched a romantic comedy the night after I left, then another the following day. Both of them had second-chance love plots that told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't grieving. She was rewriting the story already. She'd cast herself as the victim, the lonely wife abandoned by the man who couldn't handle her honesty. I could see it coming like a storm on the horizon. The narrative she'd feed her friends, maybe even social media. He just left. I tried so hard. He couldn't cope. So I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't even block her. I just stayed gone, but I stayed close. Through Liam, I learned she still talked to G, the man from those calls. He wasn't some fling. He was an old co-worker from her marketing job, the kind who wrote long philosophical captions under his Instagram selfies about authenticity and energetic alignment. The kind of man who wore linen shirts and called every woman queen. The kind who looked at men like me, stable, quiet, loyal, as background characters in the movie of his own self-enlightenment. They hadn't gone public yet. That told me she was nervous. Maybe she worried about timing or optics, or how quickly it would make her look suspicious. Either way, she wasn't ready to tell the world that she'd moved on. And that's where I saw my first opening. I spent days observing from a distance, digital distance. Her socials, her public posts, her LinkedIn updates. Nothing direct. I wasn't stalking. I was studying. If you want to understand someone, watch what they choose to show the world when they think no one important is watching. Every caption was a confession wrapped in self-praise. Growth comes when we let go of what no longer aligns with our peace. Or, sometimes love means choosing yourself. The comments were filled with her friends cheering her on, completely oblivious to the truth that she had built her peace on the ashes of 17 other lives, including mine. That's when I realized the silence wasn't punishment anymore. It was camouflage. If I stayed invisible long enough, her guard would drop. She'd start telling the story her way, and that would give me everything I needed. Not for revenge, but for exposure. Not the loud kind. Not the kind you post online or scream across a dinner table. I wanted her to expose herself, piece by her own arrogance. So I began planting little reminders that I still existed, but not where she could see me, where others would. I changed the profile picture of our old joint account to a blank gray image with a single word in white text: listening. I reactivated an old email tied to her Etsy store, one she'd forgotten I had access to, and let her customers receive automated updates signed H. Nothing malicious, just unsettling. Enough to remind her that ghosts have good memory. A week later, she posted something new, a photo of her holding a coffee mug, sunlight hitting her face, that forced smile she always practiced. The caption said, "Learning to forgive what can't be understood." I stared at it for a long time before noticing the mug. It was mine, the same one I left on the counter. The one with the sticker that read, "Property of Halden." She was sending me a message too. That photo got 213 likes. That's when I understood something important. I wasn't dealing with a person anymore. I was dealing with a story she was curating. A version of herself sculpted for sympathy and attention. She didn't want closure. She wanted control of the narrative. She wanted to win the breakup. But she forgot one thing. The quiet ones always remember details. And I remember everything. There's a moment when grief stops being pain and starts becoming precision. That's where I was now, somewhere past heartbreak, past humiliation. I wasn't sad anymore. I was observant. It was like my brain had quietly switched departments, from emotional suffering to analytical clarity. Every memory became evidence. Every gesture she'd made now felt like a breadcrumb in a trail I'd never noticed before. The way she laughed too hard in conversations that didn't involve me. The way she'd linger at parties with people who offered her admiration instead of love. The way she said, "You don't listen," while never once asking what I wanted to say. She hadn't married me to be loved. She'd married me to be seen. And when the novelty of being seen by someone loyal wore off, she went looking for new eyes to catch her reflection in. Liam and I started exchanging messages every night after that. I didn't ask him for pity or guidance. I didn't even tell him much about myself. But he understood. He'd been through the same playbook. He sent me more files, more screenshots, fragments from her digital history, and the deeper we went, the more disturbing it got. Katrina hadn't just moved from man to man. She'd left digital ghosts everywhere she went. Fake names on dating platforms, burner emails, private groups where she shared photos and stories about her partners disguised as fictional anecdotes. They weren't always cruel, but they were always mocking. She turned real people into caricatures for her amusement. She'd built a small following out of men who had no idea they'd become her content. At first, it sounded impossible. The Katrina I knew barely posted online. But that was the genius of it. She operated in corners of the internet where I would never look. She kept her public image pristine, the perfect wife with poetic captions and morning yoga posts. But underneath, she was feeding an audience that rewarded her cruelty. She wasn't just unfaithful, she was methodical. Every man she met had a role in her private theater, each serving as a new story to tell when the last one got boring. I realized I hadn't been her partner. I'd been her character, a role she'd grown tired of performing. That's when the idea came to me. Not revenge, but revelation. You can't fight someone like her with rage. Rage feeds them. They twist it into validation. Look how obsessed he still is. But the truth? The truth dries up the audience. And I had more truth than she could ever handle. Liam wasn't the only one she'd hurt. The others were still out there. Men who had been humiliated, drained, and erased. So I started searching for them. Some were easy to find. Traces of usernames, email addresses, LinkedIn profiles she'd commented on years ago. Others were harder. But I was patient. Pain makes you patient. Over time, I built a small group chat. 7 of us at first. Then 9. All strangers. All connected by one woman. We called ourselves The Archive. It started as a place to vent, to piece together timelines and stories. But soon, It became something else, a reconstruction of her real identity. The one beneath the filters and captions. Every man added another puzzle piece. How she spoke, how she lied, how she left. The result was chillingly consistent. She repeated the same phrases, the same gestures, the same confessions about her past trauma to win sympathy before disappearing into the next life. Every relationship she built had an expiration date she'd already decided on. The last man we found, an older writer named Glenn, said something that froze me. She doesn't want love. She wants history. She wants to leave a version of herself inside every man so she never really dies. I read that line over and over, and I realized he was right. Katrina wasn't chasing affection. She was chasing immortality through memory. She used people like mirrors, breaking one after another, just to see how her reflection changed in the cracks. That was when I knew what I had to do. If she wanted to live forever in memory, I would give her exactly that, but not the way she imagined. Not as a tragic, misunderstood woman. I would immortalize her as what she truly was. A pattern. A predator. A ghost made of charm and cruelty. I didn't want to destroy her. I wanted to reveal her. Slowly. Publicly. Irreversibly. And the first step was already in motion. Because the next morning, Katrina's favorite quote, "Love means choosing yourself," appeared as the title of a new anonymous post on one of her secret forums. But this time, the post wasn't written by her. It was written by me. It started small, almost invisible. That's how you dismantle someone like Katrina. You never attack the walls directly. You loosen the bricks, one by one, until the whole structure falls under its own weight. I didn't need to expose her. I just had to make her doubt the security of her performance. Doubt is poison to people like her. It eats at them quietly, forces them to look over their shoulder, question every whisper, every shadow. The first ripple began 3 days after I made that anonymous post. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't name her. I didn't post screenshots or recordings. I just wrote a single thread on a quiet corner of the internet, using her own favorite phrases, her words against her. It began with, "What if the person you're defending has been playing the same game for years?" And then I told the story, not with names, not even genders, just events. Specific enough to feel real, subtle enough to be deniable. I described how someone could use vulnerability as currency, how they collected hearts the way other people collect souvenirs, and how their greatest fear wasn't being unloved, it was being known. The post spread. Quietly. Not viral, but sticky. It found its way into her communities, her digital sanctuaries, the spaces where she felt adored. Comments started piling up. "This sounds like someone I know. Why does this feel familiar? This reminds me of that influencer who keeps talking about self-love after every breakup." No one said her name. But the timing, the details, the tone, it was unmistakable. Within hours, her followers began asking questions beneath her latest post. Polite at first, "Are you okay?" Then sharper, "Did something happen?" And finally, the one she'd been dreading. "Are you the person that thread was about?" I didn't celebrate. There was no satisfaction in it, just an eerie stillness, like watching a forest go quiet before a storm. I didn't want to humiliate her. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt. The loss of control, the slow suffocation of not knowing who's pulling the strings. That night, she called me. I didn't answer. I just watched her name flash across the burner phone I used for the group chat with the archive. She called again, then texted, "Halden, if you're behind this, please stop. You don't understand what this is doing." The irony of those words almost made me laugh. I understood exactly what it was doing. For the first time, she was living in the uncertainty she'd forced on others. Liam messaged me an hour later. "She's panicking. Her accounts are going private. She's deleting things." I told him to let it happen. Every deletion was an admission, every attempt to clean her history a quiet confession. She couldn't out-talk what was happening, because she didn't know where it was coming from. The story had grown beyond her control, spreading through whispers and screenshots and speculation. The image she had spent years building, the perfect, reflective surface she'd crafted for the world, was cracking, and she couldn't tell which piece would fall off next. But what I hadn't expected was how the archive changed too. The men I'd gathered, the broken, quiet ghosts she'd left behind, they started healing. Not in the loud, cinematic way people talk about healing online. It was quieter, simpler. Glenn said he finally slept through the night for the first time in years. Bryce deleted the last photo he'd kept of her on his phone. Liam started dating someone new. There was a strange peace in our silence, like a collective exhale. Meanwhile, Katrina began disappearing. Not physically. She was still there, still posting, still pretending, but her tone shifted. The captions lost their confidence. Her eyes looked tired. She began apologizing to no one in particular, posting long paragraphs about learning accountability and understanding the harm caused by misunderstanding. It was desperate. Hello. I watched it all unfold from that same motel, sitting at the same cheap desk, with the hum of the same flickering ceiling light above me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even satisfied. I just felt done, like the part of me she once held had finally been returned. But that feeling didn't last, because 2 nights later, I received one more message. Not from her, not from Liam, not from anyone I knew. Just a single, anonymous email. Subject line: "You think you've ended her story, but you never knew how it started." Attached was a video file. No sender name, no explanation. And when I opened it, the first face I saw wasn't hers. It was mine. I didn't breathe for the first 10 seconds of the video. My face filled the screen, recorded from a hidden angle I didn't recognize, somewhere dimly lit, grainy. It was me, sitting in a car, staring through the windshield in silence. Probably parked in our old driveway. Probably on a night I couldn't sleep but didn't want to come inside. The timestamp said October 11th, 2 years ago. I had no memory of that night. No clue who had been filming me. But the moment my tired, slumped body appeared on screen, I understood the message behind the footage. Someone, somewhere, had been watching long before I knew there was anything to see. I closed the laptop. I didn't need to watch the rest, because that was the moment I knew I had to let it all go. Not because I was afraid, not because I was defeated, but because I had finally reached the edge of it. The very last border of the world she had built around me. Her story didn't own me anymore. Her lies didn't define me. Her attention, even in the form of a threat, wasn't power anymore. I deleted the file. Then I packed my bag, left the motel key on the desk, and walked out the door into the cold morning air. The sky was turning a soft gray blue, and the street was quiet. Not in a sad way, but in the way a new day is quiet before people ruin it. It was the first time in weeks I hadn't felt the weight of her name on my shoulders. Over the next few weeks, I disappeared in the way that matters most, emotionally, digitally, spiritually. I deleted the backup accounts, shut down the burner phone, left the archive group with a final message: "You were never broken, just misused." The last thing I did, and this still makes me smile, was mail Katrina a package. No note, no return address, just a framed photo. Not of us, of me, sitting on the motel bed, blurry and half-lit, holding a coffee cup with that same sticker still on it, property of Halden. But the word property was scratched out, because I was nobody's property anymore. 6 months later, I was living in Oregon. I'd found work at a small garage run by an older couple who didn't ask questions and overpaid for honesty. My hands were finally greasy again, not shaking. I rented a small apartment above a bookstore. I made new coffee every morning and didn't flinch when the silence came. And then, one afternoon, I met her. Her name was Rowan. She walked into the garage with a busted timing belt and a rescue dog named Clementine. She didn't flirt. She didn't overshare. She just listened. And when I told her I didn't really do relationships anymore, she smiled and said, "Good. I don't do expectations." We talked every week, then every other day, then every night. No pressure, no performance, just peace. I never told her the whole story, not because I was hiding, but because I finally understood. You don't owe your past to everyone who wants your future. And as I write this now, sitting beside an open window, Clementine's head resting on my foot, Rowan humming in the kitchen, I realized something I never thought I'd believe again. I wasn't the man she destroyed. I was the man who survived. And somewhere in the wreckage, I found something better than revenge. I found myself.